Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for atutsplus.com, and this is the third tutorial for the broadcast design series. And in this tutorial we are going to create the two lower third designs as well as the over the shoulder window, or whatever this one is called. So let's start. As you can see, I'm going to use this one as a visual reference image for the tutorial, and first of all I'm going to pick up my background whoop, and let's zoom, and using the guides once again, and now I'm going to use the rounded rectangle tool to create the shape. So let's zoom out just a bit and let's draw the shape. And as you can tell, we need to adjust this shape, so something like that, and just move the guides in order to be able to adjust the shape at the rest of the corners. So it's a pretty easy thing. So we are ready with that, and now we need to just put the guides right here where is the title bar, so we know where to put it. And now I can turn off the visual reference because I don't need it anymore. And let's put a guides for the replace video holder, and of course you can customize the design according to your taste or needs. It's up to you. So we can turn off the visual reference and start working just on this part. The first thing that we are going to do is to apply a very quick fast blur effect on this one, and I guess 10 is enough, just to take off some of the detail here, because the viewer attention will be focused on the title and the video inside here. So we need something that moves here, but not that much detail as without the blur, because we can read numbers and shapes and stuff like that, and this will distract the viewer from the actual information. That's the reason why we apply a blur, and you can apply it to 20 or 15, and don't forget to click the repeat edge pixels. After that we're going to apply our favorite effect, which is stroke, and let's turn off the mask switch here, and let's increase the stroke, the brush hardness to 100%, and set the spacing to 0, so we get a nice thin border around the window. Let's collapse these effects, and now we are going to apply a perspective drop shadow effect and increase the opacity to 65 or so, and set the distance to 15 and the softness to a 30%. And now, as you can see, we have a nice soft shadow here. Which looks great. And the next thing that we are going to do is to create a new composition, Ctrl N to create a new composition, and let's increase the duration of this one to 30 seconds, and let's make it a Full HD, and let's go with something like that, and come back to this composition and change the duration to 30 seconds. And let's see, let's create a black background and type something like that, and let's try to reach the text settings and decrease the size of the title, and let's center it. And to keep the project organized, we need to take this composition here, rename this over the shoulder, and I'm not sure if the shoulder word is spelled right, but excuse me if I'm wrong. And let's put this into a new folder. I should Google it after the tutorial, of course. And let's put the, actually let's delete the reference because we don't need it anymore, and let's put this composition here. Oops. And let's scale it way down to fit here, probably 30% should be okay. And now we can use the rounded rectangle tool once again, and let's see, we can adjust the shape just a bit to give it a rounder look, which is not necessary, but I guess that I will manage to create this and the two or third elements in a single tutorial, so I'm going to take a bit more time for this design to make it look cool, like so. And now we need to apply our favorite stroke effect, and let's turn off the mask, set the brush hardness to 100%, reduce the spacing to 0, and increase the brush size to 5, because the stroke is affected by the layer scale. So if I increase the layer scale to 100%, the stroke will become thicker, and if I reduce the scale of the layer probably to, for example, 15% or 10%, the brush size will decrease as well. So it's linked to the layer scale or something like that. It's dependent of the layer scale, so we need to increase the brush size because of this reason. And now we can apply a drop shadow, and of course use the 65% opacity as usual, and again set the distance to 15 and the softness to 30. And the drop shadow is another effect that's affected and dependent of the layer scale. So if we increase the layer scale, the shadow will be bigger, and I'm trying to explain that these settings may work fine for a full HD composition scaled down to 30%, but if you scale this one to 15 or increase it to 60%, you need to dial up different settings for the drop shadow effect. So with that, we are ready to create a new solid, and let's call it title bar, and use the rectangle tool and turn off the opacity to draw the shape of the title bar. And like so. And now we can turn it on, back on, and let's apply generate ramp. Let's position the start right here and the end right here, and let's change the color of the start to the original color I used, and let's keep this one to white. Probably place it right here. Now apply a drop shadow once again with the standard settings. Just change the angle, because the drop shadow will affect the white stroke, which is the edge of our main window. So we need to tell the shadow to face down, and set the distance to 4 and the softness to 8. This way we have a nice soft shadow right here. Let's remove the guides and the mask, and now we can apply a bevel alpha with these settings. Basically we want the angle of the bevel alpha to be the opposite of the angle of the drop shadow, if that makes sense. And let's see, we can take the mask and try to play with the shape. And let's see how it will look like so, and I think we are ready with this element. Now you can link everything to the background loop, and for example put a keyframe for the position, turn on the motion blur, set this one to easy ease, and as you can see we have a beautiful animation of the element animating in. So after we are ready with this element, we can move on and start creating the lower third designs. So I have imported the references of the lower third because I don't know the exact size of the original. So let's create a new composition. Actually drop this one into a new composition, and let's rename it lower third version 1 and hit OK. Create another solid and let's call it Bottomline, and actually let's rename, or better yet select these two layers, Ctrl Shift C to pre-compose, and let's call this Bottomline and hit OK. So here we have the bottom line and we need to recreate it. So I'm going to use the guides to create a similar in size shape. And just take the rectangle mask tool and draw the shape like so, and apply a ramp, generate ramp, probably the most common effect used in this project, with the drop shadow and the stroke effect as well as the bevel alpha. And we need to modify the colors a bit. As you can see, the darker part is here and the whiter part is here, so we need to set this one to this color and this one to this color. And after we're ready with this, we are going to duplicate the layer and let's rename it to Fractal Noise, delete the ramp and apply a noise and grain fractal noise effect, which is another effect that we use a lot in this project. And let's modify the settings of the fractal noise. As before, we are going to leave the fractal type and noise type to default and increase the brightness to 5, just to make it a bit brighter, and open the transform and unlink the uniform scaling switch and set this one to 5000 and this one to 60. Set the complexity to 2, and for the evolution we are going to use a expression and just alt click and type time multiplied by 100, and this will add a animation to the layer. So after we are ready with this, we're going to set the transfer mode for the fractal noise to overlay and set the opacity to 50% as usual, and this is how the element looks like so far. And we need to apply another effects and stuff here, and we need to draw this very thin shape, as you can see. So I'm going to remove the markers and just use the mask tool. Let's create another layer which is going to be the glow line and probably make it white, just so I can I know that this is the glow layer for visual orientation. And let's see, I guess that it's something like that. We don't need to be 100% perfect, because this is just a tutorial, and in the world of design there aren't exact numbers or stuff like that. And it seems that this mask doesn't want to follow along with me. So we are ready finally, and we can turn off the reference and see how this line looks like, and I think it's a bit bigger than we need. So I'm going to decrease the size of the line like so, and start adding effects to it. The first effect that we are going to add is, of course, ramp. Let's set the start point right here and the end point right here. Modify the start color to this gray color and keep the end as white. After that, we are going to use a color correction colorama effect, and as you can see, this is how, let's remove this, this is how the wine looks like. So we are going to change this to a golden preset and check if everything is okay. And after that, we are going to apply a simple tint effect, and as you can see, this creates kind of a gradation, because here we have a darker gray that grades to almost white, and it doesn't look so flat. That's the whole point of doing that. And this is our base. Let's change the blending mode to screen, and let's duplicate it, change the blending mode to add, and we're going to start to blur this. Let's set the blur to 10 and duplicate it once again. And this is how we get this nice and soft glow. And we are going to duplicate these 3 layers and move them on top of our third design. And the only thing that we are going to change is the start of the ramp with another color, which is this one, just to change the way where the glow appears. As you can see, it's a bit different. And with that, we are ready to move on with the next element. So let's come back to this composition and start creating the main part. So let's create a solid and call it main part with black core, and let's pre-compose it into a main part composition. And let's apply ramp, but before that we are going to need our reference, which is not this one but this one. So we take this here and try to draw the same or very similar shape. Let's try to adjust it, and now we can remove turn off the reference for a second and set the start of the ramp here and the end of the opposite end, and set the core to this one and the end core to this one. And this is our base, so we're going to duplicate this and let's call it Fractal Noise. Delete the ramp and apply Fractal Noise, of course. Leave the settings as default and modify the contrast and brightness a bit. Open the transform tab unlink the uniform scaling and set the settings like so, and set the complexity to 3. And for the animation we are going to use the same expression, which is a very common expression, to add a constant animation to an option of the effect. And with this we can set the blending mode to overlay, and we are going to leave the opacity like so. And the next thing that we are going to do is to copy the top going line from here and paste it right here and move it at the top here. Delete the reference, and this is our main part. As you can see, we can save the project and come back to the main composition to create the top part. So we need to take the top part shape reference. Let's pre-compose this one and let's call it top part. Open it up, create a new solid, and let's call it top part as well. And here we are going to use the guides to create the shape, and this will be a bit time consuming because when we create the shape we are going to adjust this corner. But now we have to set a point here, delete this and this point, and just alt click to make it a straight corner, and because of the guides it will snap right into place. So we need to delete these points, oops, and just select this single point and move it into place, and do the same thing right here and snap into place. So we can turn on the layer and delete the reference, and we can apply a generate ramp effect and start positioning the started and the end point. And we are going to use the same course of the ramp like here. So this point needs to be here and this point needs to be here. And this is for the top part, and we need to duplicate this layer, rename it to Fractal Noise, delete the ramp, apply the noise, use the same settings as in the previous one, and animate it using the same expression. Set this to overlay and reduce the opacity to 60, and let's duplicate the layer and just delete the noise, and we want a black solid at 60% to a overlay mode just to darken a bit the shape, and this is how it looks so far. As you can see, a nice looking watered. So let's move on and finish it. The first thing that we need to apply is a bevel alpha to the top. So we are going to use bevel alpha and change the angle to 60 and set the white intensity to 100, and probably keep it the edge thickness at 2, and just put this behind everything else and just move it down a bit. And for the bottom line, we are going to apply a drop shadow with the following settings: opacity to 65%, and keep the drop shadow direction to 180, and set the distance to 3 and the softness to 10, and copy this effect and paste it to the main part, and just set the opacity to 100%, set the direction to default, and set the distance to 0 and the softness to 35. And as you can see, this creates a nice shadow right here, and it just makes everything else a bit more 3D. And let's see again the references. This is the wife element. As you can see, let's just create this element. It's a pretty quick thing to do. As you can see, we create the solid and just apply a quick ramp. And I'm going to cheat a little bit on this one and use the start core and put this below everything else. And as you can see, the drop shadow show up and gives it a bit more depth. And for the animation of this, we can put the rotating cube element and just scale it down until it fits this size right here. And for the animation, it's up to you how you're going to animate these elements. For the main part, I used a mask to animate it. Just subtracted the mask, set the feather to 100 or more, hit M, and just animate the mask. And the whole animation should not be more than a second or 40 frames, so take that in mind. And as you can see, this part animates in, and you can put the top part to start from this point, hit P for the position, and just animate it in, as well as the wife box. It can start from here and animate in as well. And the rotating box, it starts right from the beginning, set the scale to 0 and this one to 0 as well. Move 20 frames forward and let's see how it looks like. Let's just preview this short animation and see if it looks okay. And maybe just the animate in part. And obviously you need to tweak it a bit more, but that's basically the essential part of the lower third. And for the lower third version 2, it's pretty simple because it uses the same elements and we can recreate this very easily. Just come to the main part, copy and paste it here, and take the mask, extend it, and do the same for the fractal noise. Extend the mask, and as you can see we have our bottom part. For the clock, I'm not going to it's the same basically as the live box in the first water design that we just finished, and I remember I created the clock element in some of the previous tutorials, and it's pretty easy thing, so I'm not going to waste time to cover it. And for the bottom line, we are going just to select everything from here and paste it here, and basically do the same, but I'm going to bottom line version 2, and because we don't have the needed time, I'm going to cheat a bit and just scale it up. Otherwise I needed to come to the mask of each layer and resize it, so I guess you don't want to watch me doing that, so this is how I'm going to cheat it. And this is a pretty easy element as well to create. Just take the live box, paste it here, let's see, change the shape a bit, tweak the gradient as well, as you can see, drop shadow, probably a bevel alpha effect and stuff like that, and just put it below the bottom line. As you can see how it looks like so far, and we need to scale this as well, and this is the bottom part, and we can put the rotating cube here, and for the top part it's basically the very same thing. Just duplicate this, put it on top, take turn on the reference, take the main part and just move it like so, take the fractal noise and do the same thing, and for the glow just move it. Now we can turn off the reference, and this is the version 2 of the lower third, as you can see. And just to remove the animation, and you can animate it in using masks and stuff like that. It's pretty easy thing to do. So I'm going to select all those reference images I used, delete them, lower third version 2, and with this I guess this tutorial is ready and finished. And I'm really happy I've managed to recreate and explain how to do such a big broadcast project only in 3 short tutorials. And as you can see, using a very basic tools and building effects inside of After Effects, you can create a pretty good looking designs. And as you can see, not everything is expensive third-party plugins. So hope you like the tutorial, and hope you will create your own elements and experiment with some new fresh ideas, and probably post your work in the comments below. So once again, I'm Stefan for aetutsplus.com, and we'll see you next time.